Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentle and Lowly Co podcast. I'm Addie, your host, and today we're going to be talking about when God leads you somewhere new. Today I have a guest on the podcast again, my friend Josh Spear. So first, Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Addie. It is an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, longtime friends of your family, know
Yes.
Becca and Will a long time. I was counting the years, and it's been over 5 years. Like, they were my first friends when I moved here to Indiana, which is wild.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, which
I
is so
love that.
fun. So it's kind of fun. I feel like I get to meet another sibling of Will's as
Yep.
the years go on. So
Yes,
very
that's
fun.
great. Yeah, Will and
Yeah.
Becker are so great. They
Oh
just
my
had their
gosh.
baby
I know. Yeah,
last
their
month
parents.
or
Yes.
2 months
Which
ago. Yep.
so exciting and just adorable. And they've been on the podcast last year, but they've been on earlier podcasts, like actual different shows I've had. So I feel like it's
Oh, I
kind of
didn't know
full
that.
circle, and we're just gonna keep having more friends on. So really
Yeah.
excited to have you on as a guest and fellow creative too. So first, for the friends and people who don't know you, just share a little bit about the season and what life looks like for you right now.
Yeah, I'm from South Bend, as you are as well, and from there I was on staff at my church, Gospel City, with the creative team. Loved that job. It's like my favorite job that I've ever had. I was there for like 7 years, and when I came in, I was like a worship leader, and then that kind of like continued on. And I'm a lover of all things creative, so I like kept adding like new things. I was like picked up photography and then videography, and that led to like graphic design and all that stuff. So now it's hard to like, I don't have a clear answer of like, who am I? Like, what do
Yeah.
I do? What's my thing? Like sometimes like today I'm a designer, tomorrow I'm a like video editor, and it like changes day by day. But yeah, I love all things creative, and that's one of my passions is like bringing creativity to everything that I do, no matter where I'm at. So this past year, 2 years ago, I left my job at Gospel City. It was just like, I felt like it was time to change it up and do something new. So I went to Knoxville, worked with my dad at a mattress store that we started, which was wild. I had never thought that I would work at a mattress store before.
Yeah.
But it was great. We did it with our family. It was like me and my brothers in the store most days, my mom, my sister, my dad. We were all doing deliveries and like selling beds,
It's fun.
which is wild because I didn't know anything about beds before. And
Yeah,
now,
totally different from ministry and creative
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going from like graphic design, creative stuff, church,
Yep.
and loving all of that, and like working with teams, and then like going and learning how to sell mattresses.
Yeah.
What's amazing about it, I'm going on a tangent and like running off on this,
Hey,
but
we'll circle it back.
yeah, there was so much with it that was like similar to working at church, because it is like there is a ministry to it. There's like
Yeah.
loving people, and our goal with our mattress store was to be different than like not just like pushy salesmen, but listen to people's needs and like not take advantage of them, but like help them. Because a lot of people, they're coming to a mattress store because they're not getting sleep, their back hurts, whatever it is. You're like investing in a crucial part of their life. So I was surprised. I enjoyed it a lot, but still felt like that wasn't the thing that I wanted to do in this next season. It was kind of like a transition point. So this year I just moved like a month ago to Atlanta, and I'm here now. And I moved without a job, which was wild. It was kind of a scary move, but I'm figuring it out every day, and I'm enjoying it, but kind of trying to figure out if I can get like graphic design stuff going. Lately I've been doing more like video editing projects. So now I'm kind of like, oh, like, is that the thing that I should be doing? That's so just kind of being alert to like what things do I enjoy? Where should I go now? So the challenge is like, I love so many different things. And so I'm just trying to find like, what's my lane? Like, what can I do?
Yeah, what's the right lane maybe for the season, or maybe like a shift that I'm supposed to get on this highway that's going to take me down this other road that I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And there's so many different threads I feel like I can pull. The one thing of like ministry and the mattress store, you definitely do. Like there is such a correlation. And I think the cool thing about any job that we're in, that we can use the approach of service and working with excellence and just really meeting people's needs, and that's going to look different. But you do think about like a mattress, that is a very big part of people's lives. And you might not think about it unless you're on the other
Yeah.
side selling them, which is kind of
I
cool,
know.
but it's so true.
Yep. I've never thought about the mattress that I laid on. It was like
Yeah,
just whatever was there. And then,
that's just it.
so then you
Yeah.
start selling them and you're like, oh, there's like hybrids and inner springs. And it's crazy too, because mattresses are so confusing. So everybody
They
coming
really
in,
are.
you're
Yeah.
like, they're coming in and like, okay, I know I need a new mattress, but I have
Mhm.
no idea.
I don't know
And
what
then,
I need. Hmm.
yep. So they're like looking up stuff online and they're like
Yeah.
more confused when they're
Yep.
coming in the store. We're like, hey, like, what are we looking for? What are we trying
Yep.
to help solve? And it really is just like loving people. I think
Yeah.
that the coolest thing was like meeting couples that there were a few that would like fall in love with us and then it'd be like
Yeah.
best friends. Like I
That's
had
awesome.
one couple, they were so great. They came in and they probably spent like 2
Mhm.
hours in the store just like trying different beds. But
Wow.
the 2 hours wasn't them like shopping. It was us like
Just
talking and just like
talking.
getting
Yeah.
to know them.
Hmm.
And then they did end up like getting a mattress and they were like, "Oh, this is the perfect one. We're so excited. Can't wait for it to come." And then we were like, "Oh, we'll deliver it. It'll be there
Yeah.
like in a week. Can't wait to get it to you."
Mhm.
And then they started like coming back and like visiting the store just to say hi. They'd like pop in and be
That's
like,
so
"Hey,
awesome.
just wanted
Yeah.
to say hello." And
Yeah.
so that was like really cool to like just
Mhm.
invest in people and kind of, I don't know, you'd never think of a mattress store as being like,
Yeah.
this is a place that um, I'm gonna go and like feel cared for and feel loved.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
that's one of my like passions in life is like creating
Mhm.
environments that are like welcoming and warm and where people feel
Yeah.
seen and known.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I want them to know Jesus, but
Yeah.
if I can like share a little bit of that love, it kind of like softens people's heart. And we
Yeah.
definitely had like great conversations around Jesus in the
That's
store
so
too.
cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I do remember last year recording that episode with Becca and Will and staying with them. I was like, this mattress is awesome. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's from my dad's shop. And then
that's
seeing all
right.
that, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. But um,
Yep.
you would be surprised about all the different types and all the different things. And Will
Uh
started
huh.
going on a rant about it. I was like, that is really amazing. But I did not know this much about mattresses. So I think it's cool to see God use something that we would say could be so ordinary or not very, I don't know, exciting on the outside. It could look like it's
Yes,
not, but we all love sleep if you think about it.
I do.
People, yeah, I do. I'm like, it's amazing. So
Too much.
it is. And it's something that we also need, that God, has designed us to need. So if you can think about serving people well in that way, but
Yep.
also being set on a hill, like being a light in an actual city in Knoxville, you're going to stand out in how the way you do business. And it's going to be like, oh, they're known by how they love and how they care for their customers, which is really, really cool. So I think that's really fun, but
Mm-hmm.
such a good tangent that we can't ignore, because we had a guest on earlier this year in January, Kalian, and we talked all about like finding God in the mundane and the ordinary. And so to not rush
Mm-hmm.
past those moments, that was such a good episode. I'll definitely link that in the show notes. But first, let's dive into our first segment, music of the week. We have a lot of things, a lot of good questions to talk about. So that was just a really good teaser of like our core,
Yes.
which is awesome because you definitely have some experience about, being led wherever God wants you to go. So, first though, music of the week. Were there any like songs that kind of stood out to you this last week? And I also tell our friends it can be podcasts or audiobooks too if you're not a big music person. But
I
it,
am a music lover.
okay, there we go.
So
That's good. So, what
yes.
stood out to you this week, Josh?
Oh, what stood out to me this week? I
Yeah.
Can I give a couple answers?
Yeah, of
Is
course.
that allowed?
Yeah, it's definitely allowed. I've never had someone be this excited, but yes, it's very allowed. I love it.
No, that's great. Thank you for the permission. I needed that. It was like,
Good.
I'm just going to keep going, so you might have to cut me off, but
Okay.
I think I'll give 2 albums and then a song.
Sweet.
So the first album is Leon Bridges.
Okay.
It came out this fall, but that album has been on like repeat in my car, in my headphones. Like it is such a vibe. I love it. He's like tapped into this like Texas, Louisiana kind of like tone, and it's so groovy.
Cool.
So that's like fun listening. I love it.
Okay.
Another album is Matt Kearney. He's from Nashville.
I've heard that guy's name. I feel like I have.
Yeah, he does like Headlights Home was one of his. He did Nothing Left to Lose. Yeah, he's got I'm gonna forget all the like names of his big songs as I'm like thinking of them right now, but his latest album it came out last May, and it was like he named it Matt Kearney, so it was like a self-titled album, but that one is so good. There's like the music on it is great, the lyrics, the writing. It's a very fun album. But this week he just re-released the album with like bonus tracks on it. So
sweet.
That I was like pumped when that came out. I was like, yes, I love this album so much, and like here's more.
Oh, that's amazing. That doesn't happen a ton of times. I can't think of a lot of artists that I really love, like Ben Rector. And I mean, okay, he's like one of my main guys. So I have more people that I listen to than that. But I think about like Switchfoot. They re-released their album. Is it The Beautiful Letdown? The one with the guitar.
Yes.
I just know the art sometimes growing up.
Yep.
But they did it their version. So it's like not an add-on, but it was just they did all this different versions of the same songs with like different celebrities and artists. Really cool.
Refreshed them. Yep.
Yeah, but it kind of
Colony House was one of the ones on the album that did a song. They're another one of my favorite bands, but I won't go too much into that.
No. Hey, this is great. I love this so much. I think it's a lot of fun, especially I feel like the creatives I have on, we have music often in the background unless we're editing, which I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. But it's such a big part of our lives, and there's so much creativity to it. And even if you're not creative, you can definitely appreciate all the nuances and just the ways that you're like, oh, I love this. This is my favorite song. So
everybody loves music. Like
everyone does. Yeah.
It's such a cool thing too, because it has a way of like tapping into our like souls, and like I heard one director, Alejandro Iñárritu, he had a background in like radio and music, and he talked about how like a baby's heartbeat is rhythm, like built into us. So like God created this like rhythmic beat into us from like even before the day we're born. Like the baby like gets a heart formed like like even before it's born, and then it's like it has this like rhythmic thing built into it, and it goes with us throughout our lives. And I just think that's so cool that like rhythm is a thing that God has like designed into us, and so like music kind of like taps into that. And
for him to be mindful about that, like that's wild. It's so cool that there can still be like those nuances or some of those scientific things that we don't learn about until, I don't know, you just learn about them. And I mentioned the podcast a couple times. I totally forgot about Gospel City when you said that, but going to Gospel City and taking the doctrine class, and we're in like week 5 or 6, and it's just so cool to like see some of the more like, I don't know, minute things, but also then to see God's grandeur in all the things that we have no idea about, but we trust him in. So I'm encouraged by that, about the rhythm, because especially for our friends who might not be musically inclined, can't keep a beat. Right. Like, I guess internally, God already.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
I think that's pretty cool. And
so awesome.
Why maybe we love music. So that's really fun. Well, do you know the national parks at all? They're like really kind of fun music. Okay.
I'm
So
gonna have to check this out.
yeah, you have to check it out. It's so much
National
fun.
parks.
To me, it feels like if REI could have a soundtrack of like being a movie and like also just going to all
Yes.
the national parks, literally the national parks. There's several songs that are just my favorite, but this entire album, the Eighth Wonder album, it's just really fun. And it kind of reminds me of like the really, I don't know, like fun times in Indiana, like growing up in the summertime where you're
Yep.
just like windows down and you just explore and stuff. It's just a really good soundtrack. So that's
Yeah.
definitely the go-to.
Are there like vocals on it too, or is it
Oh
just
yeah.
instrumental?
Yeah,
Okay.
vocals. Yeah. I don't know if they have any instrumental. They might,
I
but
wasn't sure if it was like cinematic, kind of like
it's kind of
spacey
cinematic.
music, or
Yeah.
okay.
It
Are
could
they
kind of be
themed
cinematic.
like two different parks?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
But
it's just the
they
name of the
Yeah, but
group.
they might like mention, I don't know, different landmarks or like Sequoia and things. It feels very like very much, I don't know, timely. Like whenever you go to a park or like go to California, like you're going to the redwoods and stuff like that, or even in Tennessee, like the Smokies, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's very fun and like Indiana, it thankfully, like, we're all super excited that it's like over 40 degrees and like up to 50 degrees in the day right now. So,
Yes.
this definitely, like, it feels like spring is coming or summer's almost here. So I'm like, maybe that's why I have this on in like the dead of winter, probably.
Uh-huh. It helps bring you out of it and
Yeah.
like takes you
Yep.
to a happier place.
Yes, and it's like, okay, I can see the national parks are like, see all the beautiful poetic language and the sunset. I'm like, okay, there it is. It's coming.
Yep.
So it's not just overcast winter, but
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
definitely
check
check.
that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so much fun. And then this is more of like a poetic song. I really like words and lyrics. So Life's a Marathon by Northwest Stories. They
Okay.
are really, I feel like their band name kind of tells it, really good storytellers. And it's just a really beautiful reminder, in all honesty, of just like running the race well, especially as believers, as we continue to carry the gentle love of Jesus. So this song's kind of been on repeat the past week of like, okay, like just continue to run it, continue to do the things that we're doing, whatever God's called us to, even if it's not, we think, oh, it's not the most exciting, even though like I love my work, I love what I get to do. But then again, in the mundane of winter, it can feel like there's not a lot of
Yes.
stuff to do. So that is a good reminder and more of like a, I don't know, good poetic kind of journaling song, I would say. So a
Oh,
lot of
that's great.
fun.
You're
Yeah,
adding to my listen, my
that's okay.
queue. Yep.
Good. That's
I'm gonna
good.
queue it up in Spotify.
I love it. That's the whole point of this segment. So, for the theme of the week, it's kind of similar, but more just an overarching theme or pattern from the week. Did anything stand out to you, Josh, that was just on repeat from God or just that you noticed in your day to day?
Yeah, for sure. I think so like moving to Atlanta is like
Yeah.
I think I've just had like a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Even before moving to Atlanta, like last month, it's just like all the questions in my mind of like, okay, like where am I going next? Like, how am I going to make this work? Like not having everything like laid out before
Mm-hmm.
I like made the move was,
That's stressful. Yeah.
yes, very daunting to me.
Yeah.
And then I come down and like things aren't moving as fast as I want them to. And so
Mm,
like I'm like filling out applications, but
yeah.
and like one comes back and then I'm like get
Mm.
excited and then it's like, oh, but then nothing comes from that. And I'm like, ah.
Yep.
So I finally had some interviews this past week that was like giving me hope again. But
Oh, that's
um
good.
yeah, I think this week specifically has been
Mm-hmm.
just about like resting on
Mm-hmm.
the like promises of God and like trusting in
Mm-hmm.
his faithfulness. There was a song that we sang on Sunday at church, and it pulls the scripture from Matthew, where it says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and
Yeah.
his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you."
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I'm like journaling and stuff this past week, I'd written out things of like, okay, here's a list of like fears that I have right now and things that are like making me anxious and things that are like weighing down on me.
Mm-hmm.
And we sang this song at church, and it was called The Lord Will Provide.
Oh, such a good song.
It is. Oh, I love it. We were singing it, and I know the song. I've like sung it before, but there was something different about this Sunday, because when I started singing it, I was like questioning in my heart, can I sing that like with confidence that like the Lord will provide? Because I feel like I need that so much right now. Like my bank account is like getting lower and lower, and like I need a job. This is like not going well. Is this a failed experiment? Am I gonna have to like live under a bridge or something?
Yeah.
But it's not that bad.
It feels like that though at times.
It definitely
like it's gonna go that way for sure.
Yes.
Definitely been there.
So we were singing this song, and it was like sometimes there's like you sing truths because you like believe them, and they come from a place of like, I've lived this and it's true, and I like, Lord, I love you because like you've shown me yourself, or you've been faithful to me in these ways. And I was singing this song, and I was like, I'm in a spot right now where it's actually hard to sing like the Lord will provide, and like but that the bridge of it was like, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added into you. And when you like read that chapter in Matthew 6, all the things that he's talking about are like food, clothing, shelter, like the basic necessities. It's like, it was just like the Lord just kind of tapped me and was like, don't worry about those things. Like, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and he's going to take care of the rest. And it was a moment of like, okay, I'm going to have to like lead my heart with this truth. Like, I don't feel like it's true for me right now, but when I start seeing it over myself, I'm like telling myself this is true, and like I'd want to hold on to it even though I'm not like feeling it right now. And then like there's a way that God like transforms your heart in those moments. For me, like I definitely feel it, where as you start to like sing a truth, it starts to like take root in your heart. And then so that was like in the worship, and then Pastor Louis was speaking, and what he was teaching on was like God's word and how it's God's breath on a page. And sometimes we come to it looking for like information, or just like to learn more, and like the Bible is like God's breath that he's like breathed out on these pages, and it's not just something that we like read to like to like fill our heads with more knowledge,
or just to
but
consume.
It's like a personal relationship with him. And
oh, that's so good. I feel like that's a good reminder. I mean, even just did a whole podcast early in the year just opening our Bibles, and that can just be hard, just to find the time to sit with God, and to even not approach it as like that checklist, or just for something just for me, like to be like, oh wait, no, this is a part of God's grander story. I'm one small part of it, and to just even remember the context, but to hear like this is the word of God, and it's authoritative and it's powerful, but to not just treat it like another book. There's so much good practical wisdom, but also like allowing it to get from our head to our heart too.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so good.
I think that's been a big theme for me too, just about like, because part of like coming off staff in my role at Gospel City, a big part of it was just like personally, like my relationship with the Lord. It was getting to the point where I was like working in the church and like pouring out, but I wasn't like filling myself up. And it wasn't anybody else's fault. I'm the only one to blame for that, of like just not like intentionally setting that time aside and like doing that. But it felt like there was something in the way for me of like, I just need like a bigger change to kind of like reset. And a motivating factor of it was like, I need to get my relationship with the Lord like better, and like getting into his word. So even like going to Knoxville, like that was one of my main priorities, was like find space to like get in God's word. And for me, I found it in there's a park in downtown Knoxville along the river called Sequoia, and that was like my secret place.
Yeah.
Like that was my place where I had like a specific bench that I'd like go to.
Yeah.
And I felt like I just like read God's word, and like hours would go by and it'd feel like so fast. But I was like falling in love like with God's word again. And so moving here to Atlanta, honestly, I haven't like found that same space yet. I haven't found my like Sequoia, my in Sequoia Park bench. So back up in Indiana, it was Lake Michigan. So it tends to be water, like large bodies of water where I just like feel like my mind can breathe and I'm just in like the presence of God and can like cast my cares on him and just like spend time with him. So I'm like, I've been reading my Bible down here too. If my mom was listening, like I'm still reading my Bible. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Yes. But I haven't found that space that's like, this is the like the special place where I like meet with the Lord and like that secret place. So.
And that takes time. I mean, you said it's only been a month. It's going to take time and depending on where in Atlanta, but I remember evacuating from a hurricane in college, going to SCAD Atlanta campus, and it's very much cement, it's very much urban.
Right.
So that body of water might be a little harder to find, but God knows.
I know. The ocean is like 6 hours away and it's calling my name.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you could go to Savannah. Oh man. Yeah, you could. They have great coffee there, which is fantastic, which is funny.
Okay,
but
now that's really...
I know. I was like, But even like thinking back to what you said earlier about Matthew 6, that had been definitely like a chapter and like a lot of songs that I found, like Anna Golden, like where she talks, I think it's just called Birds or Birds of the Air, and like several different songs that over the last year, my friends and I just kept sending to them. I'm like, oh, this is Matthew 6. This is it. This is it. And just being reminded that God cares and he sees us, and you can feel like, oh, my bank account's dwindling. I have nothing left. Lord, I don't have a job, or I just quit my job to do this thing. I mean, I think I talked about it last year about even when I started out to like write my book, I rejected like my dream job offer. It felt like when I was like a senior in college, it would have been the offer I said yes to. And I was like, no, I think I'm supposed to say no and write this book, which is like, it seems so foolish. Like working 5 or 6 years for the thing, like the training and creatively, you're like, wait, this is it. This is what it's supposed to be. And going from an intern to this job, I'm like, oh, actually, I'm not going to take it. And it was like the most dramatic thing it felt. But I've relied on the Lord a lot in different seasons, but the Lord was truly my provider in that season. So encouragement to you, Josh. Like I remember being in a Panera Bread being like, okay, Lord, where's the next freelance job gonna come from? Like I have nothing else but you. And it can feel like, okay, I'm stepping in faith, I'm walking in faith, but it cannot feel like very, I don't know, logistical if you like those plans and things. So I'm reminded about that, where it can feel like everything is, shifting around you, but he is the one thing that's faithful and the one thing that is going to remain. And we get to see a different side of him and his character, which is truly a gift to know him, know more of him. But all that to say, it'll take time. And I applaud your faith. I know a lot of our friends listening will be like, I know that I have a couple friends, very much planner people, and I bet a lot of our listeners where it's like, you did what? So I'm like,
oh, I still can't believe it. I'm like, what am I doing?
What am I doing with my life? But I think that's the reality of like, okay, we're walking in obedience to God. Like, let's pay attention to these themes of the week, to these patterns, these things. And sometimes we need like a drastic change, like moving, where he's like, no, actually, I'm going to lead you over here to this different body of water. We can even put it that way, right? Or he's actually going to call you to drive 20 minutes further to a church. That was it for me, like to go to Gospel City instead of, I don't know, I thought I was going to move to Michigan or somewhere else. I was so ready to go somewhere, but it was like, no, you're just going to move and drive a little bit more, which in the Midwest, we're like, okay, driving more. It's like kind of the story of our lives, which is okay. But
Yep.
I know a lot of young adults, a lot of people just are always asking that question of like, is it bad if I move here or move over here? Like they're not no answers. Like both are good options, but sometimes we just don't know which is the right one. And sometimes God gives us the decision. So, you know, I think it's kind of good in a season where you can test that, you can try that and be like, okay, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna work at a mattress store, I'm gonna figure out who I am, figure out what gifts God has given me. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's a really good kind of segue into like our first question, because you and I are definitely both post grad, post college age things
Yes.
on the older side of that.
I've
So
got the gray hair to prove it.
there you go. You got the wisdom. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
That's
But
right.
yeah, so like we talked about, when you move for school and college, kind of mentioning those different seasons or even a job. I mean, my mom's a realtor, so there's always people who are moving or you're going to sell your house to go move or move your whole family in different seasons. But typically, when we're younger, we're going to move for school or move for our dream job. We're like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, God had a breakthrough, which is so true, to not deny that. But those seem to be more of like an acceptable life transition. So when we're not in one of those seasons, it does become harder to decide to move, especially when we feel like God's moving us somewhere. So how have you learned to trust God during those times, not knowing what the future holds?
Yeah. I think that's like a daily lesson of like waking up and being like, Lord, I trust you today. Like I don't know what's like next week. I don't know what's next month or next year. I don't even know what's today.
Yeah.
But like one of the things lately has been speaking truth into my heart and not like letting my circumstances like overtake my thinking and my like thought patterns. Because I think a big part of the like all the things that are like not going well just bring like anxiety and bring like overwhelming, like I mean sometimes it's like I can't sleep at night because I'm laying awake, like my heart's beating and I'm like thinking of all the things that are like going wrong and like why is this like not working out. But yeah, just like trusting in the Lord. There's one of my favorite verses in Jeremiah 17 says, blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. And it like repeats it because it's like, no, this is like so significant. It's not just like placing your trust like in the Lord and like saying a quick prayer or like it's like it's a daily like a moment by moment like decision to my trust is the Lord. Like I'm holding on to him and like getting closer to him is more important than like figuring out all of the steps and those things. And like an anchor chapter for me has been Proverbs 16 because it talks so much about like commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. And there's like so much in there that I could go through like the whole chapter, but it's like coming to the Lord first just like sets me up so much to trust in him when things aren't going very well.
Yeah.
I could share a story of like a couple weeks ago. I was literally like I was sitting here, but like right over there. It was like in the same space. I was journaling and I was literally like writing the words. Well, actually, hang on. I have my journal over here, so I'm going to.
Yes, we love journals. I can't tell you how many episodes we've done about journaling, or it's come up.
Yeah.
So this is so fitting. This is perfect.
Yep, I've got it. Oh, and there's pages falling out.
There we go.
What was that?
Great.
Yeah, but so this is what I was writing. I was like, this week has been a struggle. This was January 31st, Friday. Like this week has been a struggle. Feeling the pressure, frustrated, unmotivated, wondering if I made a huge mistake coming here. Discouraged that I haven't had a breakthrough or even a glimmer of an idea of where to go next. I feel like I'm frozen in time with nowhere to go. I'm very dramatic. When I like write in my journal, I'm
Well,
like, just let it all out.
It's
Like,
between you and God. So typically, yeah, you're like, here
yeah,
it is.
hold
Yeah.
nothing back. So I'm reading this out loud and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I am so dramatic.
Well,
But
it's a strong word choice. It's great. It's very, I mean, but like the Lord can handle all of those things. So,
yes,
yes, I think
exactly.
it's a great
I
example.
love that. The
Yeah.
Lord can handle all those things, all my anxieties. Like, he has grace for today
Yes.
for those things. Like I can bring all those things to him. But yeah. So in my dramatic reading over here, I was like, is design the right thing? Video, photo, should I like get back into church? Like, what are the things that I'm passionate about? I don't have a portfolio or website, but feel like I need 5 to represent each aspect of all the things that I do. So I was just writing about like how difficult and challenging it was. And as I was writing this, my phone like starts going off and like I'm getting a call, and it was from a guy who lives in Atlanta, and he like randomly just happened to be on LinkedIn and was looking for like someone for a design like job, and he called me up. So I was like journaling this, and I was like, oh, like, should I answer this? I was like, I haven't talked to this guy in
Yeah.
years, but I'm like, yeah, I want to, because that feels better than this right
Yeah.
now. And
Let's go to that. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
so,
I answered the phone, and he was
yeah.
like, hey, like, how's life?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in Atlanta actually. And
Man.
he was like, well, I'm looking for someone to like apply for this design role. He's a recruiter, and so he was talking to me about it and like trying to see if I would be a good fit for it. And we got off the phone, and I was just like, what are the chances? I mean, God like did this perfectly as I'm like writing like how like hard this feels.
Yeah.
He like brings this answer, and in a way where it wasn't like, okay, like this is a job, like here
Yeah.
you go. It was more of like, I see you, and
Mm-hmm.
I like hear your needs, and I'm gonna provide for you. And it was like a wake up moment of like, okay, like turn the page from like all the like struggling and
Yep.
just like
Mm-hmm.
rely and trust on in him, and using this time like to get closer in my relationship with him is worth more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter where I'm living, it doesn't matter like what my career is or what my job is, if I'm not like walking in close relationship with Jesus. Like, he wants me to be like, God wants me to be more conformed into the image of his son.
Yeah.
Like, that's his will for my life, that's his desire. And it's not about a chasing like, where should I live, or like, what should I do for work. Like, he's gonna take care of all those things in his time.
Yeah.
It may not be my time, I'm still waiting and praying.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that was just like an incredible reminder of like, I felt like the Lord was like, I see you. And that was really special.
Yeah. I mean, talk about an answer to prayer, literally, as you're praying. Like, that
Right.
is only the Lord, only God. And I've had, I can think back to like different job applications and applying and sending things. And even if you're not a creative friend where you have different types of jobs where you pick things up or you're here for a year, your journey might look more linear, but most creatives, we have to try several things before we figure out what we want to do. And I think the spoiler is like, man, even if we've been doing it 10 plus years, we still don't really know sometimes.
Oh no,
We
it's
might be
so
like, oh,
hard
I love all of these things equally. How do I choose? But
because they all feel like a piece of me. I'm
yeah,
like,
they're all part of all a part of you, and just an
I don't
overflow.
want to let go of all these other
Yeah,
things yet. I'm not ready.
I know. I totally understand that, but I can think back to literally like different jobs, like, okay, not hearing back from applications, not hearing back from this one, and then like the perfect moment, like everything lines up. Okay, hey, can you send me an email like talking about these questions or answering these questions? And then, hey, we want you to come for an on-campus or on-person interview. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hey, actually, we're gonna offer you the job, like all within the right timing. And it felt like not that you didn't have to lift a finger, but it felt so easy in the sense that God was just opening the doors for you to walk through. And that's for me, where I know our friends can, probably think back to a moment, maybe if you're younger, that could be college where you get accepted and then you find a roommate and then you get to move, or you go to the campus and everything feels right, everything clicks. Or it can be a right church at the right time. You never know what it is, but specifically, with moving and different jobs and that uncertainty, I mean, it's not fun when we have to face the reality of like, oh yeah, I have to work to live, and we have to do things, but we want to do a job that feels like us, or that has those skills that God's given us. But the encouragement is like God can meet us in all of our worry, all of our thoughts, the things that we're consumed with, and the things that the world is throwing at us that like, oh, I don't have an answer for that yet. Oh, I thought I'd be over here by now, this timeline. Oh, God's okay with it. He knows the timeline. Even last week on the podcast, we had Emma Irick on, and it's just like God knew all the different things. Like all of our plans fell through when she went to Uganda. Literally all of them fell through what she's gonna do. And it was a better story, a better thing. All of it was better than she could have, ever thought or written.
Isn't that the thing? Like when you think you're like, okay, this is my plan. This is the thing that I'm going after. And then when it changes, it's like, there might be like a freak out moment, but it's like God has a better thing. And like those decisions feel so big.
Yes.
Like, where should I go? Like after I graduate high school, like what should my career be? Like, where should I live? Who should I be in relationship with? Like all these things like feel like massive questions. And then it's like when you kind of get a perspective of them, and I think God like does that, and he shakes us up when like things don't go to our plans. And then it kind of like brings us back to like, oh no, like, Lord, I need you.
I can't do it myself. Likes to remind us about that a lot, and I think out of his kindness that he wants just to know us. He wants our heart, and like you said, I mean, we can do anything. We could do literally anything. God allows us to do that. But how kind is it of him, where you're even reminded about like from this past week of the Lord's like, actually, Josh, like I just want you to know me. Like, and that's just encouragement for all of us to be like, okay, we can do our work well, we can do all these things with excellence or do it out of our own strength, but honestly, if we're not, spending time with him or not knowing him, we're still going to feel this like restlessness, this void, because he's the only thing that gives meaning and purpose to all those things. And it's out of love that we're able to do them too. So
like the writer of the chapter, Psalm 73, he writes the first half of it, and he's like life is hard, like these things aren't going my way. It looks like the people who aren't following God are
succeeding.
They're succeeding. They're like, their lives are figured out. They're perfect. Like, why do they have it all? And I'm like, trying my best to like follow you, but it feels like it's maybe not working. And then there's a flip like halfway through, and it says, until I went into the sanctuary of God and I discerned their end. And it's like, get a bigger perspective, like come up to a higher level and see like, okay, like those decisions feel really big and they feel like massive, and you're like have all this anxiety when you're like wrestling through them. But when you like come out and like see in the scope of eternity, like the significance of those is a lot lower. And it's like God definitely cares about like the small details. Like I think definitely I'm praying right now, like, Lord, help me find a job. Like that's a daily prayer for sure.
Big detail.
Yeah. Small thing feels really big. But even smaller than that, of like, Lord, help my car to like stay alive today. And like
help it to keep running.
So there's like little prayers, and I think God like loves us to have conversation with him in the smallest details. But the perspective of like on the scale of eternity, God cares about our hearts. And then the end of the chapter finishes with, whom have I in heaven but you? There's nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but you are the strength of my life and my portion forever. And there's so much in there. Like that is scripture that like I need to like remind myself of over and over and over again, because it's like there's nothing else that matters more, and there's nothing else that truly satisfies. There's things that are fun, but like the satisfaction like fades away and then it's gone. But like growing in relationship with God is worth so much more. And the writer of that psalm was like, had that flip of like, once I saw like from a different perspective, it was easier to understand. No, like following Jesus is worth it. And like, this is what my life is all about. Like, who cares if like I don't have all the fancy things or the like success that I like tell myself that I need. Like true success is following Jesus and is like getting to know him through his word. And true success is not just like finding a job and having money and all those things
it's walking into obedience with him. And we can't walk in obedience with him or to him if we don't know him, we don't know his voice. And he's so kind to pay attention to the small things and the big things that feel very big to us, or like, why isn't this figured out yet? All the things that, we think, okay, all of this stuff we should have checked off by now. But in the grand scheme of eternity, he just wants our heart and just that devotion to him. And he can do anything with a life that's surrendered. He can pick you up and move you to Atlanta or move you to Uganda or move you to Colorado. Like he can do anything he wants to, which is really wild to think about it. But those are some of like the most encouraging testimonies or stories where people surrender it all. Like they surrender it all for Jesus. And we're deeply moved because we think, wow, like it's a big surrender to kind of to live a life that is different from the world. It absolutely is. So kind of switching gears in the sense, because it is easy to move when it's just by yourself, but you also have all these external voices and some pressures, from people who love you, who care about you, right?
Yes.
And community and fellowship is all so important. I love that topic, obviously, even writing my book about that. So I think this question is really essential, because even our friends, they can feel like, oh yeah, we're in community having this conversation with other people, in our podcast community, which is true. But the prayer is even to take these conversations into your own community and to have them too. So how, as your community, your friends, your family, even like mentors or other leaders, been instrumental in supporting you to walk in obedience to God wherever he leads?
Yeah. I think for me, it always comes back to my family. Like my family is my best friends, and I have like, I don't even know. I'm not going to be able to give the number because now we have like married siblings into the family, but
that's a lot. Yeah.
I have 11 plus extras best friends. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. And so our family is a little bit large. And, so then some of my siblings have gotten married, and they've like added, like Bethany's husband, Nathan, Nathan Cowles. I love that man. He is like truly one of my best friends. And, so I think I have the support from my family, and they're like, I'm a very like, I don't know the right words to say. I never know how to describe this, but like introverted, I guess, is a one way to describe it. But it's more of like internal processor. Like I hold on to things and I don't like go to people. So it's like when I'm like struggling, I almost like go internal more than like
that's
going and like talking to like, hey, like, help me with this. Yeah. So that has been something lately that it like feels vulnerable too, to like bring things that like that are like very like real time in the moment of like, hey, like this is this is real. This is what's up. But yeah, I think in small ways, like my mom texts me, which is super encouraging. She's like praying for you. And I had some interviews this past week. And so like told her that those were coming up. And so she was like, what time are they? So I can like pray for you those specific times. So that was really special. And yeah, I think I just like knowing that I have the support and backing from my family is like really special with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's huge. And I mean, yeah, to have that support kind of behind you, I mean, especially how large a family is too. I mean, that can almost be, I would say, a better thing, but in a way that you just have maybe even more prayer warriors. Not that, prayer it just multiplies sometimes with more people, and you have more people in your corner, which is really encouraging. But yeah, I can think about, different friends and family, and knowing that like your family is a safe place to land too. Like they're gonna accept you as you are, and you're not a failure if you have to go back home, or if you have to,
Right.
go over here. Like it's okay. And like, of course, even your parents are like, we want to help you figure out and find what God's put in you. I mean, I know that was a big thing on my dad's heart with my brother and I, of just like, okay, whatever lights you guys up, like you and Preston up to, your gifts that is in you, like I'll help you do that. And so, of course, our family, our siblings, like they want the best for us in that way, which is encouraging. Yeah, immensely encouraging to have that support, right there. And I think about, sometimes you might find like those lifelong friends either in your family, through different siblings getting married, or it might be like in college. And that's like where I really found like my core friends and core community, but also like the encouragement of like the community, it can shift and it can change. I mean, you can even think about probably Gospel City, being there, like being on staff for 7 years. That was a different season of different, like, like walking in life together with people. So you think about even like having mentors and people just to bounce things off of, which is encouraging. And so like, even when you go away, you still have people who know you, who have those years with you. You're like, hey, how are you actually doing? Especially if they have to come to you too. So that's really good.
And I didn't think about that aspect of it. Like when like leaving South Bend, I did have so many like good friends and people like investing in my life and that I could like go to. It's been hard like leaving that. Here in Atlanta, like I moved in with some of my friends here, and they were like two of my best friends from South Bend. Sam and Rose, and so they had a guest room and they were like, hey, like come down. They're like, you want to come to Atlanta? We have a room, like come stay with us.
Which is so
and
cool.
So it is like super special to just have people in my life that like love me and care about me and like are like, hey, we want to help you like through this like uncertain phase of life that's like figuring things out. So it's super awesome just to have people surrounding me that love me and that are caring for me in ways that even like I don't even have to ask them to do that. It's like
they're just like, hey, we'll show up, we'll do it.
So that's special. It definitely makes me like I'm like I want to be that to other people too. And it's hard when I feel like I don't have like much to give. It's like
it's all in different seasons, and I think it's really encouraging to have people who see you for who you are, and just to remind you of like, hey, actually God spoke this over here. Like, don't forget this, or don't forget that promise. And I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago, of like having friends in different seasons to pull friends up, in different seasons to encourage them. I think that's so good. But kind of switching gears again more into the practical side, because I think this is kind of fun, because sometimes we forget about hobbies, or we could even say like practices, maybe just like your rhythms or routines, but they can be like very very influential in our lives. If we have a routine of like, okay, I do this, and when you move, like all of that shakes up, because you're in a totally different space. So have there been like any specific hobbies or, just different practices just to help you actually stay grounded in your relationship with God, specifically as everything is kind of changing around you?
Yeah. Hobbies wise, I picked up running this past year. So that was a new challenge, and
Yep.
I never thought that I would enjoy running. Like it was something that
You're
it
like,
was,
oh, the runners do that. Yeah.
yeah, like through high school, it was like, you play soccer and
Yep.
running was like the penalty. It was like,
Yeah. Oh,
okay,
yeah, I
like
know.
go run
Yep.
sprints. And
Yep.
like, oh, like, okay.
Terrible. Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
So when I moved to Knoxville
Mhm.
last year, it was it was one of those things. Like we had a treadmill in the garage, and my dad was like, "Hey, there's this guy, Tommy Rivs, and like his like running courses are the best. Like you have to check them out." So I did one, and I couldn't do it. Like it took it like took it all out of me. I
Mhm.
could only do like short intervals, so I'd like run for a
Yeah.
minute and then like walk for a minute, run for a minute, walk for a minute. And it was like a really challenging thing. I was kind of like nervous getting into it because I was like, okay, I have asthma, like my lungs aren't that great, like feel like I'm out of shape because I haven't been like doing sports regularly or
Mhm.
anything
Yep.
active for like years. So it was like I want to get outside and I want to like start running.
Mhm.
So I was like doing these treadmill runs and then the outside runs, and over time, like seeing it like progress and like the fitness kind of build
Yeah.
was really fun. And I actually like unlocked a love for running.
It's just so cool. That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what it was for me too, like I talked about the like Lake Michigan up
Mm.
in Indiana, like that was my space that I would go to like kind of let my mind breathe and just like spend time with the Lord. But it was like just conversational prayer or just getting outside of my head and like
Mhm.
getting a perspective that I needed to like just change something up. So like being in front of like huge bodies of water like does that for me. So then not having that in Knoxville, running actually became that space where I
Mm.
could like just get outside. And at the end of the day, I run in the evenings. That's kind of because I like doing it like when I'm finishing my day and just to kind of like
Mm. Kind
relax
of
and like
de-stress. Yeah.
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 So
That's cool.
I just go out for like 30-minute runs.
Mhm.
It didn't matter how far it was. Like I just, it usually was like 2 or 3 miles or something like that. And then
Okay.
over time it like
That's
got
still
better and better.
impressive. Going from 0 running to up to 3 miles. Yeah, it takes time and takes some work. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That's
now I'm like, I love running so much that I'm just like continuing it.
that's
Like
cool.
yesterday I did a 6 mile run out here in Atlanta. And so I'm like meeting new people through it too, which is like
That's
really
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
And there's so many things to running that's like applicable to life with like
Mm.
the discipline of it. Cause it's like you don't always feel like going for a run, but then once you do it, you're like, why was I complaining about this? I actually love this. And
Like,
this
this
is
is
like,
great.
yeah, it's
So,
like there's
yeah.
a therapeutic aspect to it. It's like I need this space to just kind of like get alone with the Lord and like
Mm.
enjoy being out here and running.
Yeah.
And so that's been one thing that I've really like latched onto for the
Yeah.
past year.
Well, that's encouraging, I guess, yeah, especially for our friends who would say, "No, I'm not a runner. Count me out. It sounds like torture," or like, "I
Yep.
can't do that. It's been too long." I'm definitely had a
And I
season of
was there.
college, but
It
yeah.
I'll say a bold statement. I think
Okay.
everyone is a runner.
Everyone is a runner.
Everyone can
Has a
be a
runner in
runner.
them. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
And because it's not about like the pace, it's not about like
going
running like
fast.
fast times and
Okay.
this stuff. Like the thing that unlocked my love for running was actually like low intensity, slow running.
That's
So
so
like
interesting. Yeah.
when you're walking, like you can walk as fast as you can, and I can walk like up to like roughly like 4 miles an hour. But
Okay.
then when you walk as fast as you can, and then you just like transition that to like a run,
Little.
here's my
Yeah.
like
Go.
here's my little feet like running.
Yeah. That's
It's just a
awesome.
tiny little jog, and it's like barely
Yeah.
faster than running. But it keeps your heart rate lower,
Yeah.
allows you to like get more exercise in, and
Yeah.
so you feel great doing it. And
Oh,
that was what I was like, wait, like why was I avoiding this all this time? Like sprints were hard, but there's like
yeah.
this other aspect to running that
Mm.
is really enjoyable.
That can be a really beautiful activity. I mean, I grew up with a lot of runner friends at my very small school growing up, and
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I just did not understand cross country at all, but I applaud all of them. I was like, that is so impressive. But I think that is encouraging to be like, no, you don't have to be the fastest runner or like the furthest distance runner. I
Yep.
mean, I've heard from so many people just that mental clarity. People just go for a run just to go, like, kind of even think your thoughts. And you probably would agree, probably just, talking with God, just praying to Him, just like, hey, what
Yeah.
about this? And also, like, seeing new avenues of his creativity, especially, like, if you're going around the city or going different
Yep.
places. I think
It's
that's
a
kinda
fun way
cool.
to explore.
Yeah, that's a fun thing. I something I wanna do this year is get back into biking, and so talking about different hobbies and things, I think it's a really fun thing that sometimes
Yep.
we do ignore, and our friend Patrice a couple weeks ago kinda reminded us of that on the podcast of like, yeah, God cares about those things, and He can use them, just to speak to our heart, speak to our mind, just to get everything kind of in right order and to make it a practice with Him, which is really cool that He cares
Yep.
about that. So I think that's the encouraging thing, that to have one thing that, like, okay, I know I can go meet God here, or this is something that I can do anywhere. You can go run anywhere. Hopefully, you can maybe bike
Right.
somewhere, or you can even just, I don't know, even if it's going for a drive in the Midwest, plenty of back roads, stuff like
Yes.
that, and just have the silence or have the music with the Lord.
Oh yeah. My car, like that is another
Yeah.
secret place of mine where
Hmm.
it's like let my mind like think thoughts and
Hmm.
just have that space where it's
Yeah.
quiet and like you kind of like can get alone with the Lord and process things. So
I think that's really encouraging. And for our friends, I guess they can be runners too. So you never know.
yes.
Yeah, that's good. So some of our friends listening, they might be in a season where God is leading them just to remain planted rather than to go. I mean, that can be a very real thing, where God, will bless us to stay somewhere and to not just move and move and move. So why is remaining? Because I feel like we have to address that side of, like, instead of just always going, because God will call us to a season to be planted. So why is remaining just as important as
Yeah.
moving in obedience to God's call?
Oh, that's a big question.
Big one, I
And
know.
yeah. Well, I think for me, I go that brings my mind back to like my time at Gospel City.
Mm.
I started there as an intern, and like when I came off staff, I'd been there like 7 years. And it was like an internship turned into like part time. Like then I was like working, and then they're like, "Hey, you're like doing all this stuff.
Oh,
Can we like pay you full time, and then like this be your like main job?"
mhm.
So I was like super grateful for those opportunities and like got to
Yeah.
really grow and develop with the team there,
Mhm.
which was awesome. But I think I hit a point where I was starting to question like, is this the right
Mm.
thing for me? And it was like I felt like God hadn't quite like released me from
Mm.
it. It
Yeah.
was I was like in my mind I was making these issues like larger than they were and getting like frustrated with certain things. And a big part of it was like just staying was the thing that I needed to do. So now I've like gone, but
Mhm.
it like probably 4 years into it
Wow.
was kind of that point where I was like questioning like, Lord, should I like stay here or like are you leading me onto something else?
Mm.
And going through that like more challenging time
Yeah.
was so necessary for me because it was like don't give up on like
Mhm.
this thing that you love and like what God's doing in your heart. And
Mm.
for me a big part of it was like starting to see like where he was working around me. So
Mhm.
like looking for the stories and seeing like where people's lives are being changed and impacted. And it was like, okay, I might like feel this way, but then once I like saw God working in different ways, that like kind of remotivated me like,
Mm.
okay, like this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing.
Mm.
And I think that carried me through like
Mm.
another like 3 years of like staying on staff at Gospel
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
And I loved my job there. It was like
Mhm.
it was so wonderful. But then the transition to like leaving was kind of like felt like there was a switch where God
Mm.
was like, all right, now it's time to like step out and do something different. Like I would still be there today, like even like through the good times, through the hard times. I don't think there's like a job that I could find that would be like, oh, this is the perfect job where I'm like happy every single day of my life and like everything is perfect and the teams like gel perfectly and like we're doing great work and everyone has the same values.
Yep. All the deadlines get met all the time. All the interviews get booked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So like seeing where God was at work in the middle of it was like the thing that helped carry me through like times when it was more challenging and when I maybe felt like, oh, like this is hard, like I want out. And it was like, no, like push through that just a little bit further. And I think there's a refining process that God has for us when we like do that, and that's like just as necessary as like being where he wants you to be.
Yeah. No, I think that's really encouraging and an important part, I mean, of your journey to just being anywhere for 7 years. That's a long career. I mean, and a lot of people can think of, oh, after 4 years or 3 years, maybe I'll try something new, or oh, it's the right time to move on. I shouldn't have to stay any longer than that, especially younger generation. It's like, oh, every 2 years I'm going to switch something, and sometimes that is what God does and what he does call us to do. But I do think there's something beautiful about being planted and remaining somewhere and working with excellence in that way of like you're going to serve and you're going to be known in that community or in that job, whatever it looks like, even in the marketplace. The same principles apply. And I've found of like, even when I was interning at the city of South Bend in the Parks Department, there were people who were there at the time, I think it was 5 years. And then it was kind of funny. All of them, the marketing managers I looked up to, were leaving around their 7-year mark, which was just interesting.
Oh,
they were all kind of leaving together. But I looked up to them of being like, wow, you've been somewhere for 5 years. Like, that's really impressive. I'm like, oh, they're not leaving yet, but to see how well respected they were in their fields, how well they knew how to do their job. Like, I was like, oh, I can go to you with all my questions. Like, not everything, but they very much knew everything in their area, area of expertise. So I think it is encouraging just to, sometimes they cannot feel like this dramatic thing of like, oh, okay, I'm ready to have a stake in the ground, Lord, send me anywhere. And he's like, okay, you're going to stay. And it doesn't seem as like Instagram exciting, new place to discover, new adventure. But with him, another layer of knowing people deeper, serving with excellence, and just being in that community is just as rewarding, I think I've found. And even if it's a hard season, he's gonna bring something from it too, which is really encouraging. So I think that's really awesome. And for our final thoughts though, so for those friends who do feel a stirring as though God is leading them into a new season, what encouragement would you offer them?
Open your Bible and like trust the Lord. It's scary. It's terrifying. Every day is like, did I make a mistake? Like, is this going to work out? Or am I going to have to like go back to my parents and be like, help me?
Help me, please.
I feel like right now I'm so much in the middle of it that I don't have like a clear thing of like, this is what you need to like, before you step out. I think it is just like trusting the Lord, that like, because sometimes you need to like take a step and like make a move, even when that move feels scary, because that like step is a step like in the direction that the Lord wants to do something in your heart and in your life. And I think the encouragement that I'm trying to remind myself is like bring those scary thoughts, those scary ideas, those like the uncertainty of it, bring those things to the Lord and just like release them. Like I don't have to have such a tight grip on my life and have all the answers and have it all figured out. Another thing is oatmeal is great. If you put some raisins and coconut, maybe some dates in it, it's cheap and it's delicious.
That is
I have eaten a lot of oatmeal the past month, but and I've never been good at like budgeting and finances and all that.
Yeah.
But moving here without a job,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone hungry yet, but I've been trying to like spend my money wisely, and oatmeal has been my go-to. I tried something new last week. I put kiwi and coconut in it.
Oh,
and so that it changed it up,
interesting.
Now I got like 2 versions of oatmeal that I can go between. But
Nice. Yeah, that will definitely stretch you. Yep. Especially, I mean, when you walk in obedience in that way, the Lord, he can use anything.
Whole Foods, here's a pro tip. Whole
Okay.
Foods has the best oatmeal. It comes in like this little container. It tastes delicious. It like cooks really fast.
Nice.
I'm not like an oatmeal connoisseur, but
but
they have a really good oatmeal.
yeah, hopefully you won't turn into an oatmeal connoisseur at the end of this, couple months or year. That's not
I don't know.
going to go. But maybe you'll just really come to love oatmeal and it would just be this new thing. But I think that's fun, and also just thank you for honestly just your vulnerability and just to be, open about like, hey, I don't have all this figured out, but the Lord knows where the next right step is. And I think that's why I love having these kind of conversations, because it truly is, as we walk with him, like wherever we carry the gentle love of Jesus, like he's with us wherever we go. And it's just one step right after another. So yeah, just thank you so much, Josh, for joining the podcast. But lastly, for friends who are new here, where can they follow, all the cool creative design things that you're doing?
Yes, all my design things in my bowls of oatmeal.
Yes.
I'll start sharing those. I need to share.
Yeah, you can make them for me.
Yep. No, probably Instagram is like, that's the main one. Joshua Spear 1 is my username there. I post once every 6 months, and then it's like I'll post like every day for a week and then another 6 months.
Yeah.
So you'll get like bits and pieces of it. For the ones who like really want to follow, for the real ones, my Strava running account.
Oh, there you go.
That actually, I post there like, that gets I've actually been like writing in there. So like they're little short like captions,
so fun.
But writing, and then I take photos every day. So I'm like putting my photography in there. So Strava is actually getting more of my creative output in my photography and stuff.
Which is so cool. I have a lot of friends on Strava for biking and running and all those things, but I've never thought to like just even have it as like a creative thing. But I'm the friend who usually posts a lot more photos because so
exactly. I do the same thing. I almost like run because I have a photo that I want to share.
That's so funny.
And why I don't put it on Instagram, I don't know. There's like a pressure on Instagram that's like it has to be polished and like put together. And I put that on myself. But Strava is like free reign. It's like I post all crazy stuff, and I have like 2 followers on there, so it's like posting it out to no one. It's like basically just for me.
That's really fun. Well, you never know. You might have some running friends from this episode. You really never know.
Or new runners who start running.
Yeah, I know. Awesome. There you go. And we can have a little Strava community, which is kind of awesome. So that's really fun. Well, again, friends, I'll link all of those things in the show notes. But again, Josh, just thank you so much. It's been such a joy just getting to hear a little bit about what God's doing.
Yeah, this has been such an honor. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and I've loved this conversation.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And thank you, friends, for listening. Have a wonderful week and continue to carry the gentle love of Jesus wherever you go.